From the headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I'm Emeka Omoli. Welcome. We start in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro has announced a new system of wages and prices rooted in the petro-cryptocurrency. Maduro said August 20th will become a bank holiday in order to ease the transition to the new currency, known as the sovereign bolivar. He also changed the rules on fuel subsidies. Lower domestic gas prices will only be available to those who register their cars in a vehicle census. The government will continue to provide other direct subsidies to people holding a state-issued card. The president says his government is working on the economic prosperity plan. During his televised address, he also thanked people in the streets for their support.
I want to thank the Venezuelan people for their solidarity and support after the attack we suffered. I admire how much love and solidarity has been spread, how we have all come together, civilians and the military, to defend Venezuela against these criminals that are already detained.
En la unión cívico-militar del pueblo de Venezuela frente a estos criminales.
Well, as we mentioned, Venezuelans have been taking to the streets to reject the assassination attempt against Maduro on August 4th. Wearing red and waving their national flag, thousands marched through the capital, Caracas, to defend Venezuela's independence and sovereignty. The president of the Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, also attended the demonstration.
These attacks are just what empires have always used to get rid of people that make them uncomfortable, but they won't be able to do it with us. It's just another strategy, and we will keep moving forward. I tell them from here, they will not succeed. Those who plan an attempt against their fellow Venezuelans are not Venezuelans. They should not hold a Venezuelan identity card.
In Brazil, the leader of the Workers' Party, Gleisi Hoffmann, says the upcoming presidential election in October will be illegitimate if former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is prevented from running.
At this moment in which the ex-president is imprisoned, we choose to have Fernando Haddad because he is closer and gives a better voice. The president is more connected to express the Workers' Party voice. But we don't have a plan B. We want Lula on the ballot on October 7. We will take it there. We will fight for this. If they violently remove Lula, if Lula isn't elected, it is an illegitimate election. If they don't allow Lula to participate in the electoral process, it will be an election with a strong sense of illegitimacy.
Well, our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Mia Alberti, brings us the latest.
Gleisi Hoffmann, the president of the party, saying that the Workers' Party would consider these elections illegitimate if Lula cannot run. Now they are the first ones to say this, and for now they are the only ones. But let's remember that Lula is in front of the electoral run with 29% of voters, and that is a huge chunk of voters here in Brazil. And they will follow whatever the Workers' Party will tell them, because they are supporting Lula, they are supporting the Workers' Party. If that is enough to boycott an election, I do not think so, because that would mean that the Workers' Party, that Lula and that his supporters would be giving the election freely to Jair Bolsonaro, the candidate of the far-right party, which is leading the elections after Lula. There is a division between legal and legal teams and the legal landscape here in Brazil on what's going to happen. For example, the companies that do the polls are debating whether they should include Lula or if they should include Fernando Haddad, the man who has been a mayor of São Paulo for years and has been appointed as Lula's spokesperson in this race. And he is the plan B for the Workers' Party. If Lula cannot run, he will be the Workers' Party candidate. So we don't know yet. Also on the debates, they are still trying to involve Lula in the debates. And if that doesn't work, they want to have Fernando as the spokesperson for Lula. But one thing is for certain, that they are trying to get Lula's name and image on the television campaigns and on the ballot. And if they can hold Lula as their candidate with the appeals on the Supreme Court, with appeals on the Electoral Court until September 17, that means that Lula's name and Lula's picture will be on the ballot, and that's what the Workers' Party are trying to achieve.
That's Mia Alberti reporting there. Meanwhile, Argentina's Nobel Peace Laureate Adolfo Pérez Esquivel joined the landless workers movement in their march in support of Lula's freedom. Activists marched a 30-kilometer route over the weekend to support the former president and his candidacy.
I want to express my solidarity with the people of Brazil and for the freedom of Lula, who is a political prisoner. We need to bear in mind that what they're trying to do is keep him out of the elections. And that is not only happening to him, but also in other countries in Latin America. The extreme right is advancing in the domination over the people. That's why we demand Lula libre and for him to participate in the elections, so the Brazilian people choose who they want to govern. There is immense international solidarity in favor of Lula. I have nominated him for the World Peace Prize. That's why we are here.
Pérez Esquivel also visited with the hunger strikers who are into their 14th day and who are pressuring the judiciary to free Lula. The hunger strikers haven't eaten and said they will continue to strike until Lula is released. Members of the Movement for Social Justice in Trinidad and Tobago gathered outside the Brazilian embassy in Port of Spain to voice their support for jailed former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Lauding Lula's progressive welfare policies, they call for his immediate release. The head of the Movement of Social Justice also presented a formal letter to the Brazilian ambassador, which was signed by the Workers' Union and other social organizations.
The President of Brazil, elected by the majority of the Brazilian people very significantly, and during his presidency he was able to implement major reforms, social and economic reforms, that saw millions of Brazilians being lifted out of poverty.
Still in Brazil, U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis has met with the Brazilian Defense Minister Joaquim Silva e Luna. Their meeting focused on defense cooperation, especially regarding the trade of weapons and the use of the local military base of Alcantara. Mattis arrived in Brazil on the first leg of his Latin American tour and will then travel to Argentina, Colombia and Chile. That's according to analysts. This tour is an attempt to counterbalance China's approach to the region.
We spoke about three different topics, especially cooperation agreements with the U.S. in different areas, in the area of the Navy, in the area of the Air Force, in the area of the Army. But I will give a special highlight to the issue of a better use of the Alcantara Launch Center, a subject that has been explored.
Police in Argentina have raided the home of former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. Authorities say this is part of the ongoing corruption investigation of a bribery network during her term. Earlier on Monday, the former president appeared in court in a case in which more than a dozen elite businessmen and former officials have been arrested. Some say this is a new case of political persecution against progressive leaders, also seen with former presidents in Brazil and Ecuador. Meanwhile, the graft scandal has hit the country's currency, the peso, which fell 3.8% to the dollar. That accounts for a 9% loss in 15 days. In order to control the damage, the government says it wants to abandon the daily auctions of dollars, which had been agreed with the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. According to a market survey published by the central bank, annual inflation is expected to reach 32%, although the government committed with the IMF not to exceed 30%. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador announced investments worth more than $11 billion to boost the oil industry in Mexico. López Obrador said the plan is aimed to curb growing fuel imports. The incoming government also plans to invest $2.6 billion to modernize existing domestic refineries owned by national oil company Pemex, and spend another $8.4 billion to build a new facility within 3 years. Mexico is one of Latin America's largest crude exporters, although it's the biggest importer of U.S. refined products as well. López Obrador also announced a railway project in the Yucatan Peninsula to boost tourism in the southeast, one of the most economically deprived regions in the country. He explained the train would have an estimated budget of around $130 billion of mixed investment. The 1,500-kilometer railway will connect 5 Mexican states, including destinations such as Cancun, Tulum, Palenque, and Chichen Itza. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera accepted the resignation of his culture minister. This follows his controversial remarks about the museum commemorating the victims of Augusto Pinochet's dictatorship. Culture Minister Mauricio Rojas had to resign following the scandal just 5 days after he took office. The local press released a statement Rojas wrote 3 years ago, where he said that the Museum of Memory and Human Rights that pays tribute to the 3,200 victims is sagging. The Constitutional Court in Guatemala has held a hearing on the eviction of Swedish Ambassador Anders Kompass. The eviction was requested by Foreign Minister Sandra Hobel last May following a statement in which Kompass criticized corruption in the Central American country. She attended the hearing along with other ministers and high officials, but some groups have condemned the government and what they believe is Guatemala's zero tolerance against criticism. In Guatemala, the business group Renance SA continues to threaten Campesino leaders for opposing the construction of a hydroelectric plant over the Cajabon River.
Rogelio Kak is one of the leaders of the Quechí people that has been politically persecuted by the state and by the hydroelectric company Renace S.A. This time, he appeared in court.
The public prosecutor's office charged him with 2 crimes, legal detention and incitement to commit a crime. We did everything we could to prove his innocence, but after some time, the judge decided to charge him.
Rogelio is native of the Panzamalá de Carchá community in Alta Verapaz. He was captured and incarcerated after leading a communal land claim against the hydroelectric company Renace S.A.
They are occupying our reserve. That's why we've come here to see how we can recover this land. But unfortunately, it didn't turn out well. That is why they ordered the arrest of Rogelio Kak.
Authorities have issued 3 other arrest warrants. People in the community are worried about this because they say the justice system is criminalizing them for defending their land.
Many are now in jail only for defending their territory. The system has been unfair. What is happening is legal but illegitimate.
In the same region, Bernardo Calxol, leader of Santa Maria Cajabon, was arrested for opposing another hydroelectric project pushed by the company OSEC.
They are violating our rights. The only thing we want is to take care of what our parents gave us. We want to preserve it and protect it for our children.
Community leaders say that they are persecuted by the private companies that are leading the construction of various hydroelectric plants near the Cajabon River.
Teachers in Panama are asking the government to pay late salaries and to increase investments in the education sector. They're considering calling for a national strike to pressure the authorities.
Teachers have protested outside the Ministry of Education building in the outskirts of Panama City, asking to be paid.
The Education Ministry has a debt with us, the teachers, regarding our monthly payments. There are a lot of teachers that haven't been paid for 5 or 6 months. We believe this is an inhuman gesture and a violation to the labor rights and laws of the country.
They are also asking that the investment in the education sector reaches 6% of the gross domestic product. Currently, it doesn't exceed 4%.
They haven't fulfilled their commitment with national education for many years now. Teacher unions have been insisting in the necessity to invest what is necessary so that education in Panama improves and becomes what we hope.
Teachers and authorities agreed on their back pay and education investment after the last strike in 2016, but their requirements haven't been met until now.
Teachers' unions are considering going on strike again. We think the government will not fulfill the agreements that were achieved before. That is the payment of the salary debt and the investment of 6% in education. We are criticized when we strike, but this is something we achieved in 2016.
Teachers in the country have said they will continue to strike if the authorities don't comply with the agreements made in 2016. Unions are also considering calling for a national strike.
In Cuba, the National Assembly has been discussing the preliminary draft of the new constitution, expected to extend until November 15th. Millions of Cubans will also participate in the debate in a solid demonstration of popular democracy. Our correspondent in Havana has the latest.
Today began the popular consult process of the new project of Constitution of Cuba. All Cubans, after being approved at the National Assembly on the 21st and 22nd of July, now the constitutional project is in the street and people are going to start discussing at their work at the works, at their neighborhoods, what there are their thoughts, what their proposals, what are their expectations with this constitutional reform. Over 1 million of these constitutional projects have been sold to the people here at the mail offices, and the people are very thrilled for these discussions to begin.
That's our correspondent in Havana. Now, yesterday marked the birthday of former Cuban President Fidel Castro. He inspired leaders such as Hugo Chavez, Daniel Ortega and Evo Morales while he fought to give back power to the people. Let's have a look.
A man of thousands of battles and hundreds of ideas, Fidel Castro led a small group of revolutionaries who staged an armed attack on the Moncada barracks and fought in the Sierra Maestra between 1956 and 1959 until the revolution. Since then, he had to battle the empire over and over again in the invasion of Playa Girón. He also fought off attacks against Cuban civilians and the unfair economic and financial blockade that continues until today. But his revolutionary action for the benefit of the people transcended the continent.
Si alguien quiere saber quién es Fidel,
to understand exactly who Fidel truly was, look at the last 50 years of Latin American and Caribbean history. There you will find his footprint.
Fidel survived hundreds of assassination attempts. The worldwide campaign to discredit him could not stop the love and admiration millions had for him around the world. The bond between the people of Cuba and Venezuela, solidified by the presidency of Hugo Chavez, became a cornerstone of the historic and ideological front.
Long live the ideas of Bolivar. Long live the ideas of Martí.
The leader of the Cuban Revolution will continue to be an icon of independence in Latin America and the Caribbean. He led a social movement revered around the world.
A former Guantanamo prisoner has become a local celebrity in Uruguay after opening a Syrian pastry food stand. Ahmed Ajam arrived in Uruguay in 2014 and opened a food stand in the capital, Montevideo. Ajam sells a variety of Arab delicacies, including baklava made from pistachio nuts and tahine made from sesame seeds. He says Uruguay gave him a second chance and made his dream possible. A female female tango duos challenging sexism and traditional gender roles. Two women danced together at the Tango World Cup in Argentine's capital, Buenos Aires, to break down the prejudices. They said this is to show that we can all do what we want to do. Cynthia Tomino and Florencia de Lucio impressed the public with their performance, in which no man was needed to dance. Two other women couples and a couple of men participated in the ongoing tournament. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. At least 11 people have been killed in Italy after a bridge collapsed and fell on a highway. The accident occurred in the northern city of Genoa. Authorities fear the number of fatalities could increase. Firefighters say a number of cars are feared to have fallen from the collapsed Morandi Bridge. Only 10 vehicles have reportedly been identified so far. The first pictures of the site show large parts of the bridge missing. A man has been arrested on suspicion of terrorism in the United Kingdom after crashing a car into the security barriers outside Parliament. The driver was surrounded by police before being detained. Authorities have not yet identified him, but says he's not cooperating. The car hit a number of pedestrians and cyclists before driving into the barriers. 2 people were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The area surrounding Parliament has been cordoned off and is closed to cars. Armed police are currently patrolling the area. Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has addressed for the nation for the first time since he won last month's election. Mnangagwa said that the violent aftermath of the election had been inspired by the country's main opposition, the MDC Alliance. His inauguration on Sunday was postponed after opposition leader Nelson Chamisa challenged the electoral results in the Constitutional Court. The ruling ZANU-PF party says their lawyers would respond to Chamisa's case by Wednesday. Now it's time to bring you other news from around the world.
Gangs of youths in Sweden set fire to more than 100 cars on Monday night. The police said they weren't sure what triggered the violence, although Prime Minister Stefan Löfven said that the arson attacks appeared to be organised. Nearby towns such as Trollhättan, an area with high unemployment, and Falkenberg were affected too. Pakistan is celebrating 71 years of independence from British rule. The main ceremony took place at Jinnah Convention Centre in Islamabad, where the day began with a 31-gun salute. The national flag was then raised by President Mamnoon Hussain. Pakistan was declared an independent state after the partition of India in 1947.
Keep your resolve strong. Continue your struggle for the progress and prosperity of our beloved land. No amount of aggression, no grief, no obstruction can prevent you from attaining your goals. Remember that a progressive, strong and democratic Pakistan is our objective. May God keep all of us in His protection. Long live Pakistan.
Dozens of families have been evacuated from their homes as flash flooding swamped Port Carbon, Pennsylvania in the United States. The footage gives a glimpse into the rescue operation with a number of rubber boats used to transport people. So far, no casualties have been reported.
We've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Molu. Thank you for watching.